Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see the Docker commands which are used very frequently. If you are working as a DevOps engineer or planning to work as a DevOps engineer in the future, you should definitely learn these frequently used Docker commands which will help you in getting started with Docker and the containers. So let's get started. The first Docker command that we are going to see is docker-hyphen version. We use this command in order to know the installed version of Docker. I am in the Visual Studio Code in my local machine where I have Docker desktop installed on my machine. So if I want to know the Docker version installed on my machine, I can type docker-hyphen version and click on enter. This will give me the Docker version installed in my machine. So you can see 24.0.2. So this is the Docker version installed on my machine. So the next command that we are going to see is docker pull. We use this command in order to pull the Docker images from the Docker repository. It might be public or private. In order to pull the Docker images from the public Docker repository, you don't need to provide any credentials. You can directly use docker pull followed by the image name so that the image can be pulled from the Docker repository to your machine. But if you want to pull the images from the private Docker repository, you need to log in first to that repository and then you have to use docker pull command. So let's see in action how we can use this command. So if you open your browser and search for Docker Hub, you can see a Docker Hub container image library. So this is a place where many organizations, developers store their Docker images. So in this Docker Hub, you will find many Docker images. So here you can see MySQL, Nginx, Python, Postgres, Redis, and many more. So if you open this Docker Hub, and here you can search any Docker image that you need. So let me search for Nginx. So Nginx is a web server reverse proxy, and we can use this as a load balancer as well. So let me search for Nginx and click on Nginx. So you can see this is the Nginx image that we have in this Docker Hub. And on the right side, you can see a Docker pull command. So in order to pull this image from this Docker Hub to your machine, you can use Docker pull and Nginx so that this Nginx image can be pulled from this Docker Hub to your machine. So let's use this command and pull this Docker image from the Docker Hub to our local machine. So let me type Docker pull and the name of the image that we want. In our case, Nginx. So by default, it will pull the latest image. So you can see the Docker image is getting downloaded to our local machine. So you can see the Docker image is downloaded to your local machine. So using this Docker pull command, you can download any image that you want from the Docker repository. The next command that we are going to see is Docker images. So we use this command in order to see the available Docker images in our machine. So earlier we have used docker pull command in order to download the Nginx image from the Docker Hub to our local machine. Now let's verify whether the Docker image is successfully downloaded or not. So for that one, let's use docker images command. Docker space images. So this command will show the available Docker images in our local machine. So here you can see the Nginx repository and the tag latest. So that was the one we have pulled earlier. So we are seeing the Nginx image here using the Docker image command. That means we were successfully able to download the image from the Docker Hub to our local machine. So apart from Nginx image, we can also see two other Docker images as well in my machine. So these are the two images that I was created in the earlier videos for the Python Flask applications. So I can see all the Docker images by using the Docker images command. The next command is Docker run. So we use this Docker run command to create a container from a Docker image. A container is a running instance of an image. So in object-oriented programming, we can relate this Docker image as a class and the container as a objects. We can create as many containers as we need from a single Docker image. So let's see how we can create a container from the Nginx image that we have downloaded earlier. So I am in the same place where we have pulled the Docker image. So if you come down in the same page, you can see different Docker run commands for running the Docker image. So this is the commands that you can use based on your requirement for creating a container out of the Nginx image. So let's see how we can create a container and how we can access the Nginx. So in my Visual Studio Code, let me run Docker images one more time and see the images that are available in my local machine. So in order to run this Docker image as a Docker container, we need to use Docker run command. Docker run hyphen hyphen name. We have to specify the name of the Docker container. So let me give this as Nginx hyphen container. You can give any name here. And let me run this container as a detached mode. That means this command will be ran and this will give back the terminal for us so that we can execute any other commands. That means we are running as a detached mode. And let me give the port on which this application should be running. Let me give this as 8080 colon, and by default Nginx will be running on port 80. So this is the port on which the container will be running. So 80 is the port on which container will be running, and 8080 is the port on which we can access the container in our local machine. And finally, we have to give the name of the image. So in our case, it should be Nginx colon latest. So if you run this command, you will get an ID. So this is the ID of the running container. So let's go on to the browser and see how we can access this Nginx. So I am in the browser. If you can see, I'm using localhost since that container is running in our local machine, and I'm specifying the port as 8080. In our local machine, we are running this container on port 8080. So if I hit enter, so you can see the response that we are getting from the Nginx container that is running in our local machine. So in this way, you can run any Docker image using Docker run command, and you can access in your local machine. The next command that we are going to see is Docker ps. So we use this command in order to see the running containers in our local machine. Just like how we use Docker images command to see the available images in our local machine, in the same way, we use Docker ps command to see the Docker containers which are in running state in our local machine. So earlier we have ran Docker run command to create a container, that is Nginx container, from the Nginx image, and we got the container ID as an output. So let's run Docker ps command and see if the Docker container is running in our machine or not. Docker space ps. So this will show the running containers in our local machine. So you can see Nginx hyphen container. So this is the name of the container that we have given earlier. And here you can see 8080. This is the port on which we are going to access in our local machine. and 80 is the port on which the container is running. And here you can see the image name. So in this way, using Docker ps command, you can see the running containers. But if you want to see the stopped or exited containers as well in your local machine, you have to use -a flag. So Docker space ps -a. This command will show all the active, exited, as well as the stopped container. But if you run Docker ps command, it will show only the running containers. The next commands that we are going to see are Docker stop and Docker kill. So remember, we have ran a Docker container using Docker run command, and we have accessed the Nginx from the browser. So if you want to stop the running container, you can use Docker stop or Docker kill command. So the both commands will do the same thing. It will stop the running container, but the major difference is Docker stop command will stop the container gracefully by giving some time to the container to stop, but Docker kill command will stop the container abruptly. So it won't give container to stop gracefully. It will stop the container abruptly. So ideally, you have to use Docker stop command to stop any running container. So here you can see there is one running container in our local machine, that is Nginx container. So if you want to stop this container from running, you can use Docker stop. You don't have to provide the entire container ID. You can give the starting 3 or 4 characters. Let me give E432 and hit on enter. This command will stop the container from running. So this will give the same container ID as the response. Now if you run Docker ps, this will not show any containers because we have stopped the container. So in the same way, you can use Docker kill command, Docker space kill, and you can give the container ID so that it will stop the container abruptly. And since there are no containers running in our machine, we are not getting any response if we enter Docker space ps. But if you enter Docker space ps -a, this command will give the all the running as well as the exited and stopped containers. Now you can see we have stopped this container and you can see the status as exited. So this command along with -a flag will give all the running, stopped as well as the exited containers. So the next command that we are going to see is Docker rm command. We use this command in order to remove the container from the machine. So earlier we have stopped the running container using Docker stop or Docker kill command. Now using this Docker rm command, we are going to completely remove the container from the machine. So here you can see this container we have stopped, that is in exited state. Now let's use Docker rm command to remove this container from the machine. So let's use Docker rm space and we have to give the ID of the container. So let's give E432 and click on enter. So we got the container ID as the response. Now let's run Docker ps-a command to see all the containers in our machine. Now you can see we are not getting any containers because we have removed the container using Docker rm command. So the next command that we are going to see is Docker login command. So remember earlier we have learned that in order to download or upload any Docker image from the private repository, we have to log in first to the private repository using the credentials, and only then we will be able to download or upload the images using the Docker pull or Docker push command to the private repositories. So we will log in using the Docker login command, and we'll see how we can use this Docker login to log into the private repositories. So for that, I have created a container registry in Azure. So a container registry is just like a Docker hub, but this is a private registry where you can store all your Docker images. So if you come to the access keys section in the settings, and if you enable the admin user here, you will able to see the username and password. So using this username and password, you have to log in to this container registry first, and then you would be able to push or pull the Docker images from this container registry. So in order to log in to the Azure Container Registry, we will be using Docker login command. So let's use Docker space login space and the name of the server to which we want to log in. So in our case, we have created this ACR, that is Azure Container Registry. So we are giving the domain name. So let's click on enter. It will ask for username and password. So now you can see the login succeeded. So we are able to successfully log in to this ACR that we have created. So the next command that we are going to see is Docker tag. So if you want to push a Docker image from our local machine to the container registry or the Docker repository, you have to first tag your Docker image with the domain to where you want to push the Docker image. Let's say if you want to push a Docker image from your local machine to the Azure container registry that we have created, you have to first tag the image with the Azure container registry domain. So let's go to the Azure portal to the container registry and see how we can find the domain. So here I'm in the Azure portal in the container registry page. So as we discussed earlier, this is the place where we store the Docker images, just like the public Docker hub. So if you see here on the right, you can see login server. So this is the domain to which you have to tag the image that you have in your local machine. So that whenever you run Docker push command, you can push the Docker image from your local machine to this container registry. So let me run the Docker images command and see if we have any images in our local machine. So here you can see I have one image in my local machine. Let's push this Nginx image to the container registry that we have created in Azure. For that, we have to tag this image. So let's use Docker tag and we have to tag this image. So that's the reason I'm giving Nginx colon the tag of that image latest, and then you have to give the domain to which you want to push your Docker image. So in our case, we want to push our Docker image to the container registry. So let me paste the container registry domain and then slash, and we can give the Nginx colon latest. So once you run this command, if you click on enter, you can now if you enter Docker images, you can see both the images. One is Nginx image that we have pulled from the public Docker Hub, and then the other Nginx image that we have tagged just now. The next command that we are going to see is Docker push command. So we use this command in order to upload the Docker image from our local machine to the container registry or the Docker repository. So just like how we use Docker pull command to download the image from the Docker registry to our local machine, we use Docker push command to push or to upload the Docker image from our local machine to the Docker repository. So earlier we have tagged this Nginx image with the Azure Container Registry domain. Let's use Docker push command to push this Docker image to the container registry that we have created. So for that one, let's use Docker space push, and we have to give the name of the image and then with the tag. So the tag you can see here as latest, and you can click on enter. So this will push the Docker image from our local machine to the Azure Container Registry. So now you can see the Docker image has been pushed to this ACR. So let's go to the Azure portal and see whether this image has been pushed to the ACR or not. So I'm in the Azure portal in the container registry page where we have created this container registry. So if you come down to the services and click on repositories, so this is the place where you can see all the Docker images. So this is the Docker image that we have pushed just now. If you click on Nginx, you can see the latest tag. So this is the image that we have pushed just now. The last command that we are going to see in this video is docker rmi. So in order to delete any image in our local machine, so we will be using docker rmi command. So let's see in action how we can use this command. Let's run docker images first and see what are the images that are available in our local machine. So you can see there are 4 images that are available. So let's delete this Nginx image. So in order to delete any image, we'll be using docker rmi command. Docker space rmi space and the name of the image colon and the tag for that image latest. And once you hit enter, you can see that image is deleted. So let's again type docker images and click on enter. You can see only 3 images are available just now. So in this way, you can use docker rmi commands and you can delete any images that you don't want in your local machine. I hope you understand all the docker commands that we have discussed in this video. If you think you have learned something from this video, please like this video and subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss out on my next videos. Thank you.